This is Chris Jansen. I'm here with the End Evil podcast, and evil is the destruction of freedom. This podcast is for people that care about truth and freedom and have the imagination to envision a world that's not full of evil, that where we don't steal from one another and we care about our fellow human beings. So, on that path towards working on ourselves and becoming better human beings and trying in that way to make the world a better place, this podcast is reaching out to other folks who have the same mission. And so I reached out today to someone I met online, Sean McCann. And what's up, Sean?
Greetings. Thank you for having me. My
Yeah,
pleasure to
thanks for
be here.
coming, man. You sort of like a mini celebrity. You've been on some. I heard you've been on some pretty notable podcasts. So,
Well,
um,
I'm they've all been my friend, and that's I was their friend first and then the podcast happened because I wanted to meet these people and see what they're really all about, and one of them is Mark Passio, another one is Freeman and Mark Devlin. I've I've spoken with these people and they're real people doing the thing, just like they do on their show. It's same in real life. And that's why I've got a really good nose for fakers.
hmm.
And you know, Freeman is legit, same thing with Mark Devlin and Mark Passio. Like they
What's cool is those three guys were basically the podcasters that really spoke to me in the time when I kind of had my like realizations and awakening to a lot
awesome.
of the deeper issues that I talk about now. Freeman was the first one because I was trying to study up on weather engineering, chemtrails, and I came across his podcast, and then I got really interested. And eventually, I heard Mark Passio come on Freeman's podcast, and that's where I
Yeah,
got started on Mark Passio. And so, and then through Mark Passio's True Media class is where you and I met,
right.
and that was part of my mission there too. Like I wanted to get to know Mark a little bit more,
Yeah.
and
He's a lot
it,
more
it was
real when
really
he's
cool
talking
for
to
me to
us.
confirm what I already thought and knew is that this
Right.
guy's real. He really cares, you know.
Yeah,
He's a real
that's
guy.
true.
So that was cool, man, and that's really awesome that you had those opportunities. And I
Yeah.
think getting out there and
I
speaking with
mean, I
people is a
made it
big deal.
happen. Like I went and I rent it is a trap, or it can be if you're just there and you're just bleeding money to your rent, and like you're full of a house full of stuff that you don't need. Um it can be like a trap. And I was inspired by Freeman when he says, quit your job, save the world. Um, you know, I realized like, and he said on his podcast once, he said, you can get a bad job anywhere. I was like, ding, and so like I got a camper, and it was like a converted um cargo van basically with a pop top. And because I was mobile, I wanted to meet other anarchists because like where I was is like north of Boston, and everybody's liberal douchebags up there. That they're like that character in Beavis and Butthead,
You
the high
boys
school
been
student.
whacking in my shit.
No, no, yeah, that one's classic. I love Hank Hill there. But who's I know he's like
The neighbor.
the neighbor, but the guy plays the guitar, fly
Oh,
lesbian seagull, that
okay.
dude. Yeah, the aging hippie liberal douche.
I
Like
see. Yeah, yeah.
it was full of them, and all their kids were high on heroin, and like they were all sniffing their own ego all day. It was just it was gross. I had to get out of there and like meet real people. And it was great. Like I was on my way to Tennessee, which used to live there. I've been there, and I was like, well, on my way, I'll just go to this Mark Passio event. Like I timed it so that I would be going through Philly at the same time. And I met Leah and um, I listened to Jay Parker and like I met Jay and listened to Mark and then afterwards everybody's hanging out and they're all like, "You're going to Free Your Mind, right?" And I was like, I don't know. I'm moving to Nashville. I don't really think so. And they're like, "You're going." I was like, "Okay," like Jacqueline and so I was like, "All right, maybe." And then like they contacted me on Facebook and they're like, "Hey, this kid's got a ticket. He's giving it away. Here, you want it?" I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah, get it." And I was like, "Okay." And I asked the kid, I was the only one that asked him. And he's like, "Sure, here you go." And like I got a free ticket to Free Your Mind. And so like
Synchronicity.
yeah, it was amazing. So like I quit my job and I drove there and when I walked in, like Bob Tuskin was like, "You don't even have to tell me the story. It's cool. You're cool. Come on in." And I get to meet everybody, and it was really like a nice, warm, like welcoming thing. And it's like synchronicity gave that on purpose, and when I was there, um, I I had this thing in the past where I recognized occult symbolism in the newspapers, and it was like January 1st of 2016, they had like a burning tower on all the major newspapers. I'm like, "Oh, that's the tarot card, and oh, that's the 16th Trump." And I'm like, "Oh, 16 Trump." And I was like, "Oh, you know what I mean?" But it's the tower. That was a significant thing. It's like the tearing of the old world, killing it. And that's Trump was going to be the one that does that or whatever. It was like they were signaling to the other occult members through the newspaper. And I was like, "Oh, I got to tell Freeman that," and like I found him in the crowd. Everybody was talking to everybody. And Freeman was like all day getting like, "Oh, dude, you're the best. Oh, you're the best." And so anyway, I told him this and he was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. We should talk sometime." I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "I live in South Carolina." I was like, "Oh, I'm in Tennessee." And he's like, "Oh, you should hang out." And I was like, "Okay." So I went to Freeman's house, and then he was like, "You should go to the fucking Rainbow Gathering." I was like, "Okay, I'll go to the Rainbow Gathering," because I'm talking about anarchy. You know what I mean? He's like, "These guys are anarchists. You should really know about these guys." It's like, hmm. And so like, you know, I went. I didn't know I was gonna go, but it was in Vermont, and I was in Massachusetts, and I was like, I might as well go. Like, whatever, it's right there. And as I was walking in, and like Freeman didn't know that he was going or whatever. He didn't say like anything. But as I'm walking up, somebody in the car and says, "Hey, is this where you park?" And I look over, it's Freeman. I'm like, "What the fuck, dude?" He's like, "Oh, I knew you'd be here." It was like all synchronicity again. You know what I mean? And it's just like, and that was the first Rainbow Gathering that he told me that we met up and hung out. And the next one, like 2 years later, or what, a year and whatever, it was more synchronicity and more like, and it's just like because I gave up the control and I just like, you know, I don't know, like it's just like I care and I'm doing good and I'm not like trying to harm anyone. You know what I mean? It just like I don't know. I survived and
Like
like
when the doors open, something can come through, right? It's like
right. Yeah.
with a mind that's totally full, it's hard to put anything in there.
Right.
So when you're
Right.
open and ready, I've had pretty unique times and experiences in my life when I've been more in that place where synchronicity can happen and things can just work out. And other
I
times
think
in my life where I'm very caught in like the grind, the
mhm,
workforce and the, raising a family and all that has, it took me longer, to wake up
yeah,
because I got caught early up in, you know, all the all the parts of being a dad and,
the responsibilities, yeah.
yeah, and my dad was a Christian, and even though he was a very open-minded one, um he was still, religious. And so I always had it in my head, And it's, you know, there's such a path we go through to come to these things that we call truth, you know. And um that I guess that's my goal today, was to try to talk a little bit about what keeps people from, you know, becoming more open to see the truth. Like, how can we help them? One of the ways is to kind of like illuminate the path, right? To open that door that I was just talking about. And so I thought you could help me out a little bit. Like you said, you started noticing occult symbolism early on, and then
Yeah.
doing all your research and talking with all these other great researchers, you've picked up a lot of knowledge on. I know you've looked into the Kubrick movies, and
Oh yeah. Thank you.
well, in fact, right before we started this podcast, we were chatting a little bit about school. So let's kind of go back a
Yeah.
little bit. Tell me about like where you came from, where you first started realizing this stuff. Was there a transition you went through, or was it something you just kind
Well,
of always knew?
I guess like I came I started as I started as a Catholic. My my dad is Irish, and he's alcoholic, and you got to have religion for your family, and like so they I did the whole thing. I wasn't an altar boy or nothing, but I went to catechism. And when I was like 12, I got kicked out of catechism for like asking questions, logical, and like being skeptical of like all the dogmas of
You turned it into a
Catholicism.
cataclysm, huh?
Yeah, really. Yeah, they weren't having that shit. And and at that point, like my parents were already divorced, and like so they didn't care if I had religion anymore, because they're like, whatever, the family's gone, like who cares? And so at about 12, I was like, F that. This entire thing is like, it's evil, right? And so I hated religion, and that like grew, and like I would study it, and I would like it was just I was ended up satanic. I was a Satanist. Like I was following LaVeyan Satanism, and I was listening to Deicide all the time. And I was like, really, like anytime anybody, any kind of religion, I would fight it down, you know, like a like a verbal warrior or some shit, And and
So it
I don't
it
know, like
polarized you, right? Like being part of that whole
yeah,
Catholic growing up, it made you
yeah,
just want to be as far away from that as you could,
yeah,
right?
like I snapped like a rubber band, And I'm talking to Freeman. He says that a lot of Satanists that he knows are ex-Catholics, and same thing with
Hmm.
Mark. Like he's Italian Catholic,
Right.
um, and it's like it primes you for like rebellion, because it's so like dominating on your mind and consciousness. And I don't know. But then
Eh,
like I had some moments of like weird, like at my first communion, I like passed out with like yellow. Everything was yellow, and I like went out, and like I woke up to the nun like waking me up, smacking my face. Like that was weird. Like I don't know if there was real power to that ritual, but
you know what?
maybe it was just a hot
I
day.
felt some weird stuff from time to time. I remember one time being we went on this because I was part of this Christian group, and it was like this ecumenical collaboration or something. And we went into like three or four different types of churches, and one of them was the synagogue. And I remember when the guy was in these robes and stuff in the special room. It was like this inner room where they kept these scrolls. And when he opened this
Mm.
door, I got this like weird wave of feeling and like a rush.
Really?
Yeah, and I think,
Yeah.
you know, and think about this too. Like even a football game, you can feel what they call school spirit, right?
Mm.
The spirit of what's going on. That's why there's cheerleaders to excite
Right.
people, right? Like you
Right.
do get feelings at times like that because there's a lot of people putting their
Right.
intention into
Right.
something, and that's
Exactly.
powerful, you know, and that's a good
Yes.
primer actually for what
that
mind
is
control is, you know?
that is why big concerts like Tool is a ritual. Like Danny Carey, the drummer, knows that, and he puts that into his music. Like he uses that. He puts certain numbers, energies, evokes energies and numbers and puts it into the music. Like he's a I mean, I talk about it on other podcasts, but he's like John D following Aleister Crowley, following magician, ritual magician, and like the placement of his drums and all of that has significance. And he like consecrates it in a certain way. And then like when he's done with like he's, and then afterwards, like he takes some of the drum heads and he like puts them into the crowd, like giving that energy back to the crowd, I guess. But it's a harvesting, and but it's also like it's an amplification of that energy when everybody's together, and you can feel it. It's like it's good. I don't know. Some of it, sometimes I've seen good Tool concerts where they're singing like "Prying Open My Third Eye," and then I've also seen other ones where they're like "Fuck you, buddy," It's like a
I've
toss up.
been to a Tool concert in the pits and everything when I was much
Yeah,
younger. I was
sweet.
real big into Tool when they, were kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
getting
Same
popularized.
here. Same here.
And,
Yeah.
music is a good subject to discuss when it comes to mind control. That was something that kind of came up when I was thinking about that subject too. But while we're on that subject, I just want to say that I do think that people's intention has power, has energy. You say
Right.
people say like, "Oh, I felt the energy in the room," or
Mhm.
I could tell something's wrong with you. I could feel the difference. There's a lot of like little subtle things we even use in our language that
Yeah.
point to this fact, and it's something that these occultists, these elite kind of uh, programmers of the world understand this concept really well, and the modern person wants to just brush it off as woo woo is the word that people
Right.
use now a lot.
They're
It's like they're
programmed.
afraid of
Right.
this secret magic that we all kind of know exists. We just sort of
Mhm.
argue about how subtle it is and how real it is.
Yeah.
So I think it's tricky. Tricky is a word that's been coming to my head a lot recently to kind of break that shell for folks. My own
Right.
daughter is um, 14, and I'm trying to talk to her the other day, and I'm kind of pointing out, how does a magician trick people? you know and she was kind of making some guesses, and I was just thinking like, well, a lot of times it's distraction, right? They got something
Mhm.
going with this hand, and that's got your eyes and your attention over here, and this hand's doing something shifty, right?
Yeah.
And for a
Right.
trick to work, you have to be tricked. If we never had a realization or a illumination, we that mean that's coming from one place to a totally different place. So let's I think what I would be curious about is trying to break down some of these things that trick people, and why people could
Yeah.
be so freaking hypnotized that we can't even break through the shell. So what
Yeah.
do you think are some of the things that really the most powerful tools that are used that keep people so freaking hypnotized?
I think that the biggest tool that they have is TV, still is TV. And I think it started with the radio, you know, um, when they electrified America and and everybody went and bought a radio because they couldn't buy records because it was the depression, they blasted out that Grand Ole Opry, and just like it gave people culture. Like here it is, you know, Hicks in a barn or whatever, the barn dance. But it was like there was some really great musicians in the beginning. There was like the Carter family is like a family, wholesome, playing together like America used to. And then like they give us this box that gives us music that better we could ever play, and and it's telling us like what we are to think. And then we have the president giving us fireside chats and telling us how and what to think. and like the RCA label says his master's voice with an obedient dog listening in, you know. It's like that was the first real big mind control device, and we accepted it in our home. And then since then it just grew and expanded out to like black and white TV, you know, with like 3 stations or whatever, and then, you know, color TV, and now it's expanded even further to like internet TV and Netflix, you know, whatever. And of course Hollywood's always been there, you know, but TV is in your home, and it's like on all the time, and it's like you trust it because it's like a guest in your home, you know, and these people are in front of you every day, and it's like, you know, Joe Scarborough or whoever the hell is, you know, is like giving you your programming of the day. Programming, like it's even in the words. It's like they tell you what it is. It's a programming device, and they, you know, people willingly accept it. And you know,
You know,
I
it's funny
think.
you brought up
Go ahead.
the music when they first came out with the radio, because I was doing some work the other weekend for this woman, and she should be retired, but she's still working. She's a tough lady, older lady, right? And she was
Hmm.
describing back in the day when she met her husband, and she was into like couples dancing, you know, and they were doing the
Yeah.
different dances, and she was sort of saying it sort of sad, like with a little bit of sorrow, that, oh, you know, things changed when the music changed. That kind of
Hmm.
dancing kind of died out.
Right.
And she mentioned the
Dolly Parton all
Beatles.
of a sudden. Yeah, the Beatles too.
And it sort of got
Right.
me thinking, holy shit, like she's just, you know, anecdotally,
Right.
like she's just mentioning how everything kind of changed about
Right.
then. And I'm thinking, well, that was part of the programming. That was
Right.
purposeful. Because I know
Yes.
bands like the Beatles were, um, you know, government deep state, maybe not government specifically, but some kind of deep state planned
Right.
to
They work for the
purposefully.
dark occult, just like Grateful Dead, and you know, yes, purposefully. But they give you the country music first, and then that's like the conservative, and then they give you the long-haired hippies, and that's like the liberal, you know, like they give you both. And they're both like, one of them is from Music Row, Nashville, and the other one is from Laurel Canyon, LA. It's like the same
Like the
thing, you know.
dialectic, right?
Yes, they create the dialectic, so then it divides the people, and they can turn the knobs of anger and like resentment, and like the people that the hippie the hippie people, they they ruined the public's view of the anti-war movement. And then in like response to that, the hard hat wearing country listeners were like, "Oh, well, we're pro-war then because those guys suck," you know. And then it like engendered more support for the war because everybody hates dirty hippies. You know, look at them fornicating in the mud, like they're gross.
And part
And
of that was done with the music, right? Like making, because hippies, I mean, I used to argue sometimes with people about this because they have a bad name in modern, especially in construction. People I talk
mhm.
to, they like use hippie as a swear word. I'm like,
Yeah,
wait a second, you know, some like my mom and my, you know, some of my other friends' moms and dads were like, they're freedom fighters in their time. They were out like trying to get people out of the war and
right,
trying to speak out against the war. So the original idea of the hippies was actually a movement of people, you know, caring like we're trying to do, right?
right,
And even going out in the street or going in front of places where they had bombs and saying, you know, we don't want these bombs and that kind of thing. But how did they turn it with bands like the Doors, right?
right.
To make them into
Laurel
these
Canyon,
like drug taking, and was the
right.
Doors just a natural organic band that grew out of its,
No, hell
isn't there
no.
some pretty deep story behind Jim
Read
Morrison?
some Dave McGowan. Dave McGowan researched that, and he like weird scenes inside the canyon. Um, yeah, Jim Morrison's dad was Admiral Morrison, who was like in charge of the Gulf of Tonkin,
The Bay of
And
Tonkin, right? Yeah, or the Gulf of
yeah, so
Tonkin.
like he was like integral part of the Vietnam War, you know. And when Jim would get drunk, he would yell at the fans. He would yell, "You're all a bunch of slaves. When are
Oh,
you gonna stop letting them push you around?" And they're all like, "Duh." You know, it's great. Like, but I mean, I don't know. Like, it's obviously he was working for them, you know, and like I think that I don't think he died. I think he graduated out. I think he's like making poetry somewhere. Well, he probably died by now, but I mean, like the way that they tell us he died in the bathtub, like I don't know about that. Like, I think he escaped the fame and shit. I think he did his
I've
duty.
wondered that
They let
about a
him
lot of
go.
famous deaths. I mean,
Yeah, David Bowie, the
I mean,
recent one.
maybe we don't know. Those things are kind of conjecture, and I think it's
Sure,
important to
I can
like
never
kind of
prove
make
it.
the point is some things we talk about are truth, and some things we talk
Mhm.
about are,
Right.
we're kind of
Uh,
guessing. But I
Obviously,
mean,
I'm
I
guessing.
think it's fairly much. I don't think there's any argument that, for instance, like Jim Morrison's dad was an admiral
Well,
in the
that's proven.
military, right?
There's
Yeah.
pictures of him with his dad, like on a battleship.
Yeah, and some of these facts in history that really
Mm,
point out like there's some pretty spooky stuff about the Beatles, and is
right.
um I forget, does Devlin cover some of that too?
He
He's a
does a
musician too,
lot
right?
of Beatles stuff. Yeah, Mark
Yeah,
Devlin
thought he
goes
did.
hard on the Beatles, and he does the fall research, the faux Paul, like
Right,
Paul is
the fake
dead. Like,
Paul died thing.
yeah, like that's big part of his musical truth book. Uh, he's doing his third book now. He's already done two. Um, and he's had other researchers that have gone way deeper into Beatles that he's had on his show, and they riff on it. It's great to listen to. They're really smart.
So yeah, if
I,
a person wanted to look into it, look into some of these bands,
yeah,
right? Look into the Doors, look into the Beatles,
right.
and look
And the
at
Grateful
some of
Dead,
the
of
stories, the
course.
Grateful Dead, right?
Yeah,
A perfect place to
like their
test out
mind,
things on people that are lost, right?
right? Like the wall of sound is like an audio experiment by this dude Owlsley who created the Sunshine LSD, and then when they made it illegal, he was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do the audio now. He like gave it to the black market people to do the LSD, and this wall of sound is like speakers, like 100-foot wall of speakers. You know what I mean? And it wouldn't the way the waves of sound they would overlap, and it would mess it up, like like logically it's not for the music, you know what I mean? It's a sound experiment on the crowd. You know, they're running, it's the same as like Burning Man is like a government operation to
Disneyland.
test people like rats in a maze, you know what I mean? It's like on government property, and it's like they're all high on government psychedelics, you know what I mean? Um it's like it's an experiment, and they're testing the limits of where they can bring people's minds, you know. It's more MK Ultra, it's like an extension. And Ken Kesey was working for them, and Grateful Dead was Ken Kesey's house band, you know. And like they're all members of, you know, Freemasons, and you know, Tavistock Institute is their band manager. Like, I mean, their tour manager. You know, like they're heavily into it. And like their name, they was given their name. They couldn't even choose their own name. They were like the corporate guys are like, "You're the Grateful Dead," and they're like, "Okay," because you know, and like the Deadheads. You know, it's like
Right, right.
it's a
The
cult
dead,
mockery.
the occult mockery, right? The dead.
Exactly.
That's what
Like they're
they would
happy,
call, right?
they're grateful to be unaware
Mm-hmm.
and dead heads, you know.
Yep.
And it's just they got the main singer guy's name is Pigpen, like the Peanuts character, and he was like head of the Hells Angels, or he wasn't head of that. No, he was a member of the Hells Angels, friends with these dudes, and like it would bring that crowd to the shows, and they would have the Hells Angels be like security guards and shit. Like it's a weird, and the Hells Angels are all like, black market pushing drugs and violence, you know what I mean? And and they're friends with Allen Ginsberg, you know what I mean? Who's like a intense pedophile who's like blatant member of NAMBLA, and he like shows up on video, like film footage of Grateful Dead, and in between songs, like he just shows up on stage with this little kid. He says, "Hey, anybody know whose kid this is?" And then like walks away with it. Like what the? It's gross. And
Well, that's where I think most people I speak to on a day-to-day basis, like, they stop short. They really haven't seen all and heard of all the connections that,
right.
like, you're describing, or that things I've come across in,
Hmm.
years of looking into this kind of stuff, where you keep seeing there's all these connections. I think the
Right.
average person I've talked to, even people that I might be able to crack through them a little bit with, like, talking about 9/11, and they might understand that things that
Right.
happened on 9/11 aren't legit, and there's something weird about it. They've probably heard
Mhm.
some of that, but then
I mean, it's
they don't want to
obvious.
believe that there's this connection through all of Hollywood and all of music. They say
Sure.
there's no way things could be that
It gets
connected.
down to like our words are built by them. Like just our vocabulary is created by our owners. You know what I mean? It's like how we think, what we think, everything. It's we're
It's
anyway.
it's
Yeah.
a deep dark web,
Yeah.
and part of it's the symbology, that
Right.
they're able to mind control us, is really what it comes down to. And so
Yes.
one of the ways was through, we're talking about music, we're talking about movies, and other ones like the news, and that's kind of more in the category I would put of, like, propaganda.
Right.
And here's a funny one. I'm driving last weekend. It's funny, not funny. This is like right out of They Live, the movie They Live.
Oh no.
I'm driving down Highway 12, which is a country road going into, like, wine country, Napa Valley of California. So this is the area I used to live, and part of why I moved away, because it was kind of like you're describing. It was so lefty when this whole COVID thing hit. Like,
Oh man.
it turned into a place where I just didn't even feel comfortable being. I was scared. I'm completely surrounded with
Right.
people that love wearing masks and love licking boots. And so this area is particularly, I guess, what you would call lefty, right?
Mhm.
As I'm driving in, this is like a country highway. It's a two-lane highway. There's nothing on either side. It's like, miles of dirt. There's wineries out there, if you take
Sure.
some weird road. But for the most part, there's no sidewalk, no nothing. It's just a two-lane road. And there's along the side of the road, like, a construction sign. Those ones that they have on a little trailer with a bunch of little circle lights that can be programmed to say different things.
Sure.
The little yellow lights, right? And it's blinking, and it
Mhm.
says, maintain 6 feet distance, face covering required. And it's just going back and forth, maintain 6 feet
Sure.
distance, face covering required. And the only
Yeah.
people that can see this sign are people that are in their car driving on this
Right.
country road. There's
Yeah.
no buildings around, there's no sidewalks, there's no businesses.
Yeah.
It's just out there in the middle of nowhere. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you have to pay to rent those trailers. Somebody pays
Right.
for that.
Your tax dollars pay for that shit.
Who's paying for this random
Yeah. You're
propaganda
paying for
tool?
it.
It's like They Live. It's
Yeah.
like, obey, 6 feet
Right.
distance, face covering. I'm in my fucking car. There's nobody
Dude.
around here who's not in their car. It's
Yeah, man.
Is
It's
that
I
just
mean, it's
mind blowing or
sad,
what?
but they gotta like that's part of it. With cult programming, you gotta hammer it in, repetition. That's how cults do it. That's how religion works. You know, like
Repetition.
they used to scare you with hellfire every 5 minutes, like, be afraid of that, and follow what we tell you to do, or else, same thing, be afraid, or, and do what we want. That's how you live, you know, like, it's the same old story, and
Yeah.
it's, like I said, they gotta repeat it, because if you forget, then you're normal again. That's why you got to wear the mask, because it reminds you, it's like in your face all day long. It's, you know,
It's not subtle, really. It's like in your face everywhere you go.
right.
And one thing
Yeah,
I've noticed about COVID is it must be the most advertised and propagandized illness that has ever been in existence, right?
it is. Yeah.
Every news
That just goes to
station, every
show it's fake.
channel, everything you open
Right.
anywhere is going
Just
to
like
have.
terrorism, what it was before, when it was like orange alert, yellow alert, red alert, terrorism, terrorism, and they were selling, after 9/11, they were selling for office people in high-rise buildings parachutes that they could have at their desk, just in case. I mean, people were so scared. I mean, and they're doing the same thing. It's 9/11 extended. This is more 9/11, more of it, just turned up to the next level. You know, it's unbelievable.
So
And
that
like
must
people
be
go
like
along.
an important part of the mind control thing, right? Like fear.
Yes. Yes.
What does that
It's
do to the brain? It, you know,
well,
it
I mean, it hardwires it. Like if you get the same synapse firing of like fear, 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 like what fires together wires together, with like brain, like that's how your brain builds itself. So if you repeatedly do something, then it's going to become a habit, and it's your brain is going to like go for that naturally, because that's its normal, it's built for that. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah, like an easy pathway has already been built.
yes, right. And
And then
so,
like
like,
if you
we
wanted
will
to
be more prone to that in the future, and your brain will live on that energy. It'll be like, yes, more, It's go ahead. Sorry.
I was thinking of like the fight or flight, the brain, the lower brain, right? The like um
Yes.
when you're scared, you're thinking like an animal would,
Mhm.
do I run or do I
Exactly.
fight? Whereas
Exactly.
when you're calm and you're meditating, you're able to start reaching these other layers of
Right.
being, and think about creative thoughts and imaginative
Right.
thoughts.
Like contemplation is not possible. Like you need the both temples to work together. You need right brain and left brain. And those are in the frontal lobe, you know, you can't your reptile brain. It's just unless you want to be a reptile. You know what I mean? I think that you people need to like they need to like take that moment in between their reaction from their stimulus and their reaction. They need to like take a second and breathe and think about it first, because everybody is just like they're all triggered. That's all they do is just trigger out. They don't think about what they're doing or why. They're just robots. Um, they've
how,
become slaves.
how about the symbolism, like how does the symbolism work? I mean, I think most people just think it's just like, oh, that stuff doesn't affect me,
Mm.
that's just some symbol, it's just a picture. But
Well,
why
it's
why does
it's
it affect people?
archetypal. I think it will, in my opinion of how I've come to understand it, is it's archetypal, and it's like a primordial language that we recognize, like our subconscious, like right brain intelligence can understand it without our conscious brain knowing. It's already there. It's like a epigenetic kind of imprint that we've gathered through the years of being human. Like, I mean, images like, ideas like the sun and shit. It's like being alive in the world gives us archetypal structure in our mind, a language of understanding reality. And, like how they put the sun on food and stuff. It's like on the labels, like they put farms on like something that you buy at Walmart in the dairy area, or some like in one of the like it's just, it's a lie, but it's makes you feel wholesome, you know what I mean? It's that like, oh, a nice clean farms, oh, that's where these cows must eat grass, it's just like it goes in your subconscious mind, like thinks it, you know what I mean? And um the dark occult use their symbology and their programming to like wield your subconscious triggers, and it's more efficient to use them. Like they're useful, why not use them, you know what I mean? Like uh just I because your right brain and your subconscious is always absorbing and like processing. And if you like, your conscious mind won't even be aware of the input from your subconscious, and if they can get your subconscious directly, then that's a sweet spot for them. They want that because that's like 95% of like your output is subconscious
And I
influence.
think here's one trippy thing I've it's occurred to me and I've thought about is you can really only look at one thing pretty much at a time.
Hmm.
Like we think we're seeing this whole world of stuff, but I've tried experimenting with this, like just try to look
Yeah.
at a couple things at once. You
Yeah.
really can't. I mean, you can out of focus sort of have a
Right.
peripheral, but
Your
you really can
focus is
only look
only,
at one thing
yeah,
at a time.
right.
And
The
and
way your
so
eye is built, it's like that. Like you only have like a very small portion of acute focus, and the rest is all blurred. Like the
your
way that
brain's
your eye
kind of
is
filling it
shaped.
in, right?
Exact. Well, I mean, it does fill in some things, but your eye is taking in that information. It's just can't get the fine detail, you know. And if you're on entheogens, and your brain might be filling in some stuff, but I mean, like it's just, I'm talking about like the acute fine detail of like being able to read fine print and stuff. You got to have it like directly in the center of your vision. You can't read fine print over here, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like your eye has to look at it. It's like how it's built. And like, oh, I'm sorry if that made a noise.
No, that
um
didn't. I didn't get it.
okay, all right, okay, good. My phone made a, but anyway, the way, like, I'm a photographer, so I like learned about the brain and the eye and light and like how all of that interacts. So like that, I can actually bring information that's true to that. You know, your brain can only, or your eye can only focus on a very small portion, and it has to jump around like really fast all the time. Your eyes are always like, man, like getting an idea of the whole picture by jumping to little pieces, like, and your subconscious is controlling that. And like the light point, the part that has more light draws your eye first. And if there's words in the scene, that draws your eye, because we've trained ourselves to like gather as much information as we can from our environment. And words are very effective tools, you know what I mean? So like our brain automatically reads words. So that's why they give us advertising everywhere, like in your vision. Like you can't escape it, and your brain has to read these words. Like it's like you can't ignore the stuff, um that's another way, like they understand the psychology of your brain and how it works with your eye, and how like they study that and they get paid lots of money, to like tell advertising companies what to do to influence you subconsciously. You know what I mean?
Right. There's big money in that too. I mean, so there's
Exactly.
always an easy way to justify it. Whole think tanks of college grads, right?
Yeah,
Working on these kind of ideas and studying which colors work the
exactly.
best, which
To
block
sell you
letters should we use.
toothpaste. Yeah, or
Affect
something.
people's minds. So we know
Yeah,
advertising works, otherwise no one would use it. But
right.
when advertising is subtle and you were talking before about ritual, and when you were, looking into Satanism, and when we were talking about religion, both
Hmm.
carry these rituals that people do, right? So
Right.
one thing that's occurred to me, like TV is constantly now blaring like ritual murder, ritual stealing, ritual lying.
Really?
Well, I mean, every show you
Wow.
watch, that's what gets your attention, right?
Yeah. I guess
It's
like that.
either someone
I
getting
mean,
killed, someone
yeah.
lying and telling, a bunch of lies. That's a funny show. And you're
Hmm.
watching them every night. So it's a ritual. So
Oh,
in a
I
lot of
see what you
ways,
mean.
the subconscious mind is always being part of this
Yes.
ritual
Yeah.
evil, and
Repetition.
accepting it as something good. But
Yeah.
you're taking part of it. I mean, think about, we think it's bad, like in the ancient Roman days when people would go see the gladiators fight. Oh, how disgusting, how cruel. But you don't think twice to watch something like that on your television, because in your mind
Right.
it's not real. But does
Right.
the subconscious mind really know the difference? I
No.
really wonder just how much it is. I mean, if
No.
not, it's training wheels. It's teaching people to be okay with
Exactly.
these things and to be used to them
Exactly.
and accept them
And
as fine.
the video games too. Like there's recruiting offices of military that have first person shooter games, like arcade games, and they're all free. And the kids can come in after school and shoot, you know, random Arabs or whatever in these video games all day. And then when they get to be 18, the recruiters are allowed to sneak up to them over their shoulder, say, "Hey, you want to try doing that for real with a real gun?" Like, after all of that programming, all the years of high school, playing these games, and they go to this place like it's home. Oh, I love it. All my friends go there, and then what's next? Come do some death, guys. Come on, join the death cult. It's fun, remember?
Hmm. Yeah. It's like you're all ready to go.
Yeah, yeah, it's training wheels, like you were saying.
You were talking about school, and you were saying how your school had a police officer.
Yes,
I grew up in East San Jose, and my high school had two police officers at least on duty all the time at the school. And I
man.
noticed from the time I started, we used to cut class a lot. By the time I was a junior and senior, I was leaving all the time. But I noticed in the years after I left, the school got more and more fenced in. The
Hmm,
the fences got bigger all around. They added these like gates, these grates, at all the entrances that didn't used to be there when I was there. And progressively, when I would
weird.
drive by that school over the next few years, it was like
Turned
a
into a
jail.
prison. Yeah,
And I was thinking
yeah,
to myself,
prison.
you could just build the jail right next door. There's already
True.
a large percentage of those kids I went to school with that would go pretty much right out of school right into
Yeah,
jail. And
yeah,
it's like
and they're
training
built
camp.
by the same companies. The guys that build the schools are making the same companies that are making the jails, and they're private prisons now. It's like,
Just
well,
a
whatever.
transition, right?
Yeah, of course, they don't, they they're training them to either be a worker, or we don't want you and we can make money off you this way, because like each prisoner gets like 70 grand of a year to keep them in prison, just to feed them. And like, if we could have 70 grand a year, just free money like that, we wouldn't choose to live in that cage or eat that shitty food. Like, these prisons are making money on off of the prison, the each prisoner.
Right.
Like, and they get free work out of them. They're out there like cleaning highways and cleaning up like dirty needles and like kids parks and stuff. And they get paid they sometimes they get paid, other times they get like good time. After like a month of cleaning up needles, you get like half a week or something, not even like 2 days or something off of your sentence, you know. So like just working off your sentence, you know, it's slavery, you know. It's a, and they're allowing it because, oh, you smoked a plant and we don't like that, so go be a slave, you know. Well, I don't like that either. Well, we are gonna harm you and we're gonna, you know, force you to do it. Like there's, I mean, you know, if you tried to run, obviously they would hurt you hard. You know, like it's not something that you can like say no to. Like they, you know, because I was caught with a plant and I was, you know, whatever. Like I've been cleaning up on the side of the highway for the state. You know, I've been the slave before, you know, and I understand what it is. And I've seen the mentality of people in jail. Some of them, like, they're happy to be there. Like, I know one guy who was there, his bail was like $50, but he was staying in because it's a warm place to live in the winter. It's like Massachusetts. So he would like go do a crime that's like petty crime. And, you know, it's crazy, like using the state as like a shack, a place to whatever. And then like other people were like huge dudes, jacked motherfuckers, and they're like Saturday morning watching Full House, you know, the Olsen twins eating their cereal, like, yeah. And they're like, you know, they're totally destroyed babies, you know what I mean? And they can't do society. You know, the jail is like a safe place for them. It's really, it's weird. It's
And now we have this whole new system of creating a jail in everybody's home where everybody's afraid to go outside. You're all
right.
prisoners
Yeah,
because
everybody's
you're
home is a
all
jail.
infected with the disease,
Right.
right?
Yeah, they're all infected with the mind control. Yeah.
So, we're getting close to an hour. We've been talking for pretty good. Let's close up by maybe talking about like our ideas for kind of solution to all these problems we're describing, the mind control.
Hmm.
What do we do about it? You got any ideas, Sean?
Well, I think is to be vigilant with like understanding truth and like filtering everything that goes in with a conscious understanding of why and what is actually being said, what are they doing, you know, be a real like have a real critical nose and give everything a sniff test, you know what I mean? Because like where, who, what, when, and where, you know, what is all this information? Understand it fully. Don't just accept it. You know, don't just gobble it up because that sounds normal. That sounds about right. Yeah, based on my understanding of the world. Because really, like, we don't know nothing. Like and then it takes like years of understanding, like unlearning shit that we're programmed to like really rely on what we have learned, you know, which that we have like given the sniff test properly to many different things and like, okay, that is solid information. I can stand on that. Okay, that's solid info. And the rest of it, get rid of it. You know, you don't have time for fake. You don't have time for lies. You don't have time for that. You need to like filter your mind information, like what goes into your mind, you know, as much as possible, like you do your water or your food. You don't want to be eating poison. Your brain doesn't need it, and it's only harmful. So clean up the information that you're receiving. You know, use your brain because we have one. Might as well use it. You know, because like just accepting information, even if it sounds right, is not. You aren't sure. You don't know it's true, and you know you got to be honest that you don't. You know, um I think that that is like a good first step, and to like be unashamed when dealing with people that are under the spell, is, you know, tell them the truth every time. don't, I know it's work and it sucks, but sometimes it helps. Like there's a there's a dude that I know that I've known for years and years since high school. And we used to ride motorcycles together and we'd hang out, and this kid would never look into anything. And I'd be talking about anarchy and I'd be like learning stuff and on my learning path, and I'd be like sharing with him all this crazy stuff that I'm learning, and he'd just be like, yeah, yeah, whatever. And it just like, meh, it just didn't work. It didn't hit it, but I was just expressing myself, whatever. It didn't matter to me. I was just whatever. And now years later, now he's an anarchist and he's like learning like me, and he's like looking into Larkin Rose, and he's like looking into like he hasn't looked into Passio yet, but I don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like he's looking into the things that I was looking into, and he's like, yes, that makes sense. His own mind, like I was like telling him the truth, and he couldn't be bothered. And now, like even before this coronavirus thing, like it, it blossomed into a real, like his own mind has fully grokked the idea, fully grasped it, and like can understand it for himself. And then when new situations and questions come eyes, then he has a firm understanding of like personal freedom, and like can apply that to the next thing that I might not even know to give him advice on or something. So like if you care about people, you got to speak it out and you got to tell the truth, because somebody might hear you and it's worth it. So,
Yeah, I think that's one of the really powerful things about having these interviews, these conversations like the one we're having now, where you and I kind of hashing out some of this stuff. Whoever's listening to it, it's going to kind of turn in their head, and maybe some little comment or idea that we presented will be something that they can now present to someone else
yeah.
in a different way than they might have otherwise had they not heard this conversation.
Right.
And I think, like you're saying, it's important for us all just to kind of keep the subject going, keep talking, keep
Right.
asking what's truth, what's not. And for me, a big one too is elimination. There's some shit that's just not even worth putting in your head. And one of
Yes.
those is the news. Like people
Yeah.
ask me, where do you get your news? I don't watch the news. I don't watch it
No.
at all. And I
Good.
don't watch sitcom shows, and I don't watch, much any TV at all really,
Good
because
for you.
um I know myself. It does affect me. Even though I know what's up in a lot of ways where I don't think a lot of folks do, if I watch a movie with a bunch of violence in it, the next day I can notice some of it running through my head and
Oh,
some of the
you remember
scenes
those scenes? Oh man.
flashing by, and they don't go
I
away. Your
relate to
brain your
that.
brain doesn't just filter it
Yes.
right out. It's still in there.
Yes. I
And
will.
so
Yeah.
go
Go
easy
ahead.
on your brain. Don't force it to
Right.
watch this crap. You don't need
Yeah.
it.
You don't need to watch Human Centipede. I'm glad that I've never seen that. I will not put it in my brain. Yeah, I know
I
what
don't
it
even
is.
want to know.
Yeah, it's a horror movie. It's bad. Like
Oh,
South
okay.
Park did
I
a
was
spoof on
imagining
it,
something worse.
but it's bad. Like but I mean, you know, there were some movies I can relate to that. Like that, there's a movie called Bad Batch where like the first scene is like first person point of view. There's like some raggedy woman like cutting off your arm, and you're like looking up and you can hear the grind on your bones, and they're just like she's just hacking away, and you're like chained down, and it's just like Jesus. And they were playing this song Ace of Base. Oh, they
Oh,
like turn it up because the person's screaming as they're getting their arm cut off, and they just,
yeah.
all that she wants is another baby, and they're like,
He's
"Nah,"
got the
and they're like
heart.
cooking it and eating it in front of the victim after they cut her arm and her leg, and they're like eating it, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, and that's like in my brain, and I couldn't hear that. I was hearing that song for like weeks. Like the director of that movie is really effective. They did a great job, like
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
really laid in there thick,
Yep.
and
And that's their goal. But we have
exactly,
to recognize that our
effective
brain
artwork.
is a sponge. It
Yes.
soaks stuff in. We are very impressionable. even when we are conscious beings, there's so much distraction that
Yeah.
it takes a conscious effort to sort of focus on things that are worth watching. I would
Right.
recommend go to the One Great Work Network, where you can find more of Sean's work, right?
Yes. Thank you for
And
that. Yeah.
that's a
There's
great
other
place to
there's
hang
others
out, watch
there.
those
There
shows. Go
right.
ahead.
There's others there that are infinitely more valuable than me. I mean, it's like it's a hub of knowledge and, care, people that really care and want to share what matters, Um I think everybody should check it out. And this will be on there. Like
Oh yeah.
I'm surely going to post this. And are you on there? Are
Yeah, yeah.
you're on there as well. So like we're like we're like I'm still learning who's on there. Like I'm, going back there and checking everything out. And
Yeah, it's
it's like
there's
an
so much to
infinite
learn.
source.
There's so much people's work to look at, and
Right.
that's a good way to spend some time if you feel like sitting down and watching some shows, learn about what other people have spent their lifetime studying and learning
Yeah.
and putting
Yeah.
their energy and care in to help humanity to trying to make things better. That's
Right.
worthwhile, right?
And I like all the different styles. Everybody's got like their own way of coming at it. You know what I mean? Like their expression of truth. You know what I mean? And I value it. I think it's great, and I'm very honored to be a part of it. You know.
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty excited. So, is there anywhere else where you would point people to check out more of your
Um.
stuff, or?
Well, I've got. Uh. I don't have a straight website per se. I do have an online store where I sell anarchy minded, um, freedom based clothing, I guess. It's certain designs that I've created over the years, and I would like make shirts and bring them with me in the van, and I would sell shirts where I'm going to like fund my adventures, And I've taken those designs and I put them on a online store where I can sell them all the time and people can have access to them all the time. And that is
Awesome.
store frontier / auctoritas illusio. It's Latin for authorities illusion. I know it's weird. It's AUCTORITAS ILLUSIO illusio. Yeah.
Maybe you could
Anyway,
send me that link, and I'll
I
put it
will
along
send you the link. Yeah, I
wherever
should
I
have thought
post it
I
too.
should have been like getting something easier to do and say.
Yeah, that one's a
But
little hard to just
yeah, I
spout
mean
right off. Doesn't
nobody's
just
speaking
roll off the
Latin.
tongue.
It's like a yeah, it does to me because I've been saying it so much. But auctoritas illusio is Latin for authority's illusion. And that was
Nice.
like that's on my main symbol has that, and it's I was getting a lot of Mark Passio and a lot of Larkin Rose in my brain, and then like that design like just came to me, and it's been like my main tip of the spear like this whole time. I always like I'm wearing it now, like um
Love it. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna have to check out your store. That's cool.
please do, man. That'd be great. And also I have a podcast titled Wake the Dead, and I'm just starting it out. My production value is pretty basic, but I'm I am not a rich man. So, but it is working, and it gets my message out. And like with the skills that I've learned from Mark, and once I get some better tools, I will expand on, you know, the artwork of it and make it more aesthetically pleasing. But as far as now, it's bare bones, just, speaking into a microphone, telling what I need to say. And I've kind of I've started it out talking about art and its ability to affect subconscious. So it kind of relates to what we've been talking about tonight. and then I segue that into Kubrick because I've done a lot of research, I guess, just like soaking it in. Like Kubrick is a master photographer, and being a photographer my whole life is like that's that's why I want to look at his work all the time, and I want to learn more about it because he's such a master, and like um it's natural for me to learn more about that. So that has been a focus. Like his films have been a focus for a lot of years, I guess, of my life. And even when I was in high school, I was in a band with Rob Falzano, and he's like the drummer of Tenebrae now. He's a professional musician, and but anyway, he was the drummer of the band. It was Room 237 was the name of our band, and we would like have clips of The Shining in between
Mm.
songs. It was just I don't know. It's always been like a thing in my life, and it's just one of the puzzle pieces that has come together to um and I don't know, it's just unfolded, and so I accept it and I keep going with it. And so anyway, I'm into the series of Kubrick now, and I'm going to expand out pretty much. It's my interface with the world. Like it's where I'm going to unload all my thoughts. So Wake the Dead podcast. It's on Spotify, it's on Anchor, it's on iTunes radio. I don't know. It's on a bunch of them. I don't even know where it's at, but it's on Spotify for sure.
It's out
And
there.
yeah, it's there. It's there. Look it up. Wake the Dead. Nobody else has that name, so
Nice.
somehow it just magically that worked out. So
That's awesome. Right on.
that's great.
Cool, man. Well, this has been a great talk, and I'm really curious to get more into the checking out your Kubrick work. Maybe that's something we could talk about more in the future.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
man, that'd be great.
yeah. But
Um,
I guess we'll close up this one for now, and then unless you had anything else you wanted to add.
no, man, it's an honor to be here, and I hope to have many more. And it'd be good to maybe have you on as a guest on my show someday.
Sure. Yeah.
It's good to cross pollinate with people that understand, what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. It feels really cool to have these conversations.
I
You know what I'm
agree.
talking about. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right.
It's
And you
good.
don't have to get hung up on who's going to build the roads, man. Oh, that one again, Why don't you move to Somalia? Oh, okay. Anyway, yeah,
Yes.
it's been a
Thank
real
you.
pleasure, brother. Have a
Appreciate it.
great
All
one.
right, Sean.
Thank you so much,
Well, you
man.
have a great night, and we'll connect again real soon.
You as well, brother. Thank you
All right,
again,
man.
man.
Have a good one later on.
Bye-bye.
All right, that went pretty good.
Nice.